The mess hall of Station Chrono 7 buzzed with the usual cacophony of 100 different species dining together. The Velkari roared their approval at fermented meats, while the crystalline Gentar hummed harmonically as they absorbed mineral broths. In the corner, the Draari younglings, cubs, as the humans called them, chittered and wrestled over their portions, their scaled tails whipping excitedly. Sergeant Lyra Cole stood in line with her standard-issue tray, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert. Years of military service had taught her to read a room, and right now, she was reading Contempt. The Velkari security officer manning the serving station, a towering, muscle-bound creature named Grask, sneered as Lyra approached. His species was known for consuming 3 times their body weight daily, a fact they wore as a badge of honor. The human. Grask's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Here for your pittance." Lyra said nothing, simply held out her tray. The serving droid dispensed her ration, a modest portion of protein paste, a handful of carbohydrate wafers, and a small cup of vitamin supplement. "Standard human fare, efficient, sufficient." Grask bellowed with laughter, his voice carrying across the mess hall. Several heads turned. "Look at this!" The mighty human warrior, survivor of the Kareth campaign sustained by what wouldn't feed a Velkari infant. He turned to his companion, another security officer with slate-gray scales. "No wonder they're so small. They barely eat." A few chuckles rippled through the nearby tables. Lyra's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she maintained her composure. She'd heard worse. Much worse. She took her tray and headed toward an empty table near the viewports, where the stars wheeled slowly beyond the reinforced glass, but she didn't make it there. A small shape darted in front of her. Rin, one of the Draari cubs. The young alien barely came up to Lyra's waist, his amber eyes wide and curious. His species had been rescued from a dying world 6 months ago, and the cubs had taken up residence in the station's civilian quarter, where they attended the multi-species school. "Sergeant Cole," Rin's voice was high and excited. "Sit with us." Lyra hesitated. The cubs' table was chaos incarnate, 12 younglings arguing, laughing, and occasionally throwing food. But Rin's expression was so earnest, his tail wagging like an eager canine, that she found herself nodding. "All right, Rin, just for a bit." The table erupted in cheers as she sat down. The cubs immediately swarmed around her, chattering in their hybrid language of Draari clicks and broken standard. Lyra set down her tray and prepared to eat, but Rin was staring at her meal with an expression she couldn't quite read. "That's all?" he asked quietly. "It's enough," Lyra replied, picking up her spork. "Humans are efficient. We don't need much to—" She was cut off by a sudden movement. Rin had taken one of his 3 protein clusters, a significantly larger portion than her entire meal, and plopped it onto her tray. "Rin, I can't— You saved my clutch, mother." The cub's voice was serious now, his usual playfulness gone. "On the transport ship. When the reactor failed, you carried her and 2 others through the fire," Lyra remembered. The rescue operation from the Draari homeworld had gone sideways fast. She'd done what any soldier would do. "That was my job," she said softly. "You gave her your oxygen mask," Rin continued. "We heard the recording. You went 3 minutes without breathing." Before Lyra could respond, another cub, Sella, with her distinctive purple scales, added her own portion to the tray. Then another, and another. Within seconds, every cub at the table had contributed something. Her modest meal had transformed into a towering pyramid of food. "Cubs, really, this is too much." "The big guards mock you," Rin said, his young voice carrying an edge of anger she'd never heard before. "They call humans weak because you don't need to eat like they do." "But we know better," Sella nodded vigorously. "Teacher told us about Earth. Your planet has less oxygen than ours. Less food, harsher seasons. Humans learned to survive on less because they had to. That's not weakness. That's strength." Lyra felt something tighten in her chest. These children understood something that the so-called adults couldn't grasp. Across the mess hall, Grask had noticed the commotion. He lumbered over, his expression dark. "What is this?" "Cubs, you need your nutrition. Stop giving your portions to—" "We choose," Rin interrupted, standing on his chair to meet the Velkari's eyes. "She doesn't need it." "We know that. But we give it anyway, because she would do the same for us." Grask's mouth worked silently for a moment. Around them, the mess hall had gone quiet. Even the Velkari's companion looked uncomfortable. She went into a burning ship, Sela added, her voice steady. She carried our people when she could barely breathe. And you mock her for eating a small meal? The young Draari eyes flashed. Maybe you should learn the difference between appetite and courage. The silence was deafening. Grask looked from the cubs to Lyra to the mountain of food on her tray. His face cycled through several shades of embarrassment before he finally turned and walked away without another word. The mess hall slowly returned to its normal noise level, but Lyra could feel the shift. The way people were looking at her and at the cubs had changed. Rin sat back down, suddenly looking like a child again rather than a fierce defender. I'm sorry if we embarrassed you, Sergeant. Lyra looked at the pile of food, then at the circle of young faces watching her anxiously. She smiled, a real smile, perhaps the first she'd worn in weeks. You didn't embarrass me. You honored me. She began dividing the food back among the cubs. But I'm going to teach you all something important about humans. We're at our best when we share. As they ate together, laughing and telling stories, Lyra reflected on the strange truth of the universe. Humanity's strength had never been in consuming the most or being the largest or the fiercest. It was in enduring and adapting, in finding ways to survive and thrive on less than others needed. And sometimes, it was in the quiet recognition of younglings who understood that true strength wasn't measured in portions, but in actions. From across the mess hall, she caught the eye of a human corporal she knew from the armory. He'd witnessed the whole thing. He raised his cup in a subtle salute, and she nodded back. The cubs had already moved on to some debate about the best way to climb the station's ventilation shafts. But Rin leaned against her shoulder, content and full. Thank you, Lyra whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was thanking the cub or the universe for this moment of grace. In the cold void of space, on a station populated by 100 proud species, a small human and a group of cubs had reminded everyone watching that respect isn't demanded by size or appetite. It's earned one quiet action at a time.